Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have vowed to take away your Second Amendment rights through gun bans, gun confiscation, and government regulations. Now, Joe Biden is no longer hiding his real intentions, and we need you to take action now.
Whether it's a 9mm pistol or whether it's a rifle, is ridiculous. I'm continuing to push to eliminate the sale of those things. But
the Biden administration is coming after your right to own any gun. Joe Biden has already issued executive orders.
Hey, and welcome to another edition of the Daily Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, Mike Powowarski. He is one of the gentlemen behind The Rundown. Mike, thanks for joining me today, man.
It's a pleasure, Paul. Always great to be here with you, the Daily Bullet with the Second Amendment Foundation.
All right, let's get started. It's a bit of a slow news day, but we got a couple stories you want to talk about. Let's kick it off with New York Attorney General Leticia James says she's not going to run for governor. This actually was a fairly big surprise for me. I thought, she has been going after the NRA, and I honestly believe the reason she was going after the NRA was that she was painting a gold paint, that was using that to paint gold on her governor's seat. And now she says she's not going to run for governor. She needs to finish going after the NRA.
Yeah, and with the Cuomo, resignation, it seemed like she was the leading candidate. I'm not sure, Paul. I'm not sure how to take it. Obviously, I think it's great for the state of New York that they don't have to deal with another gun grabber. I mean, all the other ones are going to be gun grabbers as well. We've seen the current, governor there. She's been, grabbing for more guns than she's ever grabbed for in her life because she wants to remain the governor after the election comes around. But it makes me wonder: is there something in Leticia's background that says if I ran for the higher officer of governor and became under even more scrutiny, that they might find something on me as well? The whole sexual harassment thing is not specific to men alone.
Right. Are there skeletons in the closet? Yeah.
Yeah. She's been going after the NRA. I would think the NRA had deep pockets enough to do a background on her. Perhaps it seems like LaPierre likes to play dirty like that. So I would think maybe he would, but. Maybe his investigators aren't that good. Maybe she's a little concerned. Maybe something came up in the audit after they went after Governor Cuomo. Maybe there was something into those, batch of records that they pulled on him. So I'm not sure. I thought for sure, like you did, that she was a shoo-in. So this is a pleasant surprise for, like I said, those that enjoy their gun rights. But makes me think, what don't we know?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I want to mention to everybody, if you're watching, no matter if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, if you want to get in on the conversation, just comment. And as long as your comment is relevant, we'll go ahead and put your comment on the air and we'll discuss it. Our next story I want to jump in on, Michigan Democrats want to limit gun magazines to 10 rounds because we all know how effective that is. We've seen that in places like New York has a magazine limit. Yep. California has a magazine limit.
Yep. New Jersey. Yep.
Yeah. Places that it's been passed through, it's ineffective, and Michigan says, well, let's strike while the iron's hot. We just had a tragedy. Let's capitalize on that tragedy, and let's get a 10-round magazine limit go through.
Yeah, right. Rahm Emanuel, never let a tragedy go to waste.
Right.
You're going to use it whenever you can. Paul, when you sent this to me, I misread. I didn't misread it. But on my phone, part of it was the title was not there. So I got to thinking. I was like, wow. There's certain words I hate or don't use unless it's to make fun of when we're talking about Second Amendment rights. One is common sense. We know that the word common sense has been bastardized by the left. To make it sound like, it's the only right thing to do, as opposed to looking at all of the facts and both sides of the argument. Other one I make fun of is the whole gun community thing. That's just them trying to blur the lines between the left and right so they can make you believe what the left want is what everybody wants. But when I saw this article, I thought, wow, this might be some decent common sense out of the Democrats. I'm not sure, because I read the article, Paul, as Michigan wants to restrict gun magazines to 10. The rounds part got cut off.
Oh.
So it said gun magazines to 10. I was like, well, 10 mags per gun's okay with me. I'm all right with that. I mean, do I finally agree with Democrats on something? We can only have 10 magazines per gun?
I suppose 10 per. You know what? I would have to. I think I would have to lose a few AR mags.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, you sent me that story, and I thought, wow. Then when I had a chance to look it up on the computer rather than on the phone, I saw it was about 10 rounds. And Paul, this is idiotic. You know, how many times do we see how this doesn't work? Every time California and New York and New Jersey, somebody passes this, we either continue to have shootings with magazines that are larger, or we have just as fatal shootings with these magazines. Paul, a little known fact, and people all have to do is go look up the report. The Parkland High School shooting down in at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School was with 10-round magazines. That's all the kid had. And you know why he did that? They were easier to conceal more of them. So that's what the kid said in his own admission. So, yeah, the magazines make no difference. I understand. Gabby Gifford was shot because somebody had an extended round magazine. Now, listen, it doesn't matter whether you got a 10 round, a 27 round, a 30 round. It doesn't matter to me. When you have evil in your heart, you desire to kill. It didn't stop, like I said, the Parkland shooting. It didn't stop Virginia Tech. It's not going to stop anybody else.
No. And what it does is it hurts defenders. The bad guys, a magazine change is quick. A magazine change at the most takes 2 to 3 seconds. If you're and the attacker
because for
has
the
all
most
the time
part,
in the
the
world
aggressor,
get prepared.
Right. The aggressor has everything they want with them, all the extra magazines that they think they're going to need. The law-abiding citizen, the concealed carrier, the open carrier, whatever it is, has got that first magazine, maybe that second. And if they're in one of those states where they could only have 10, well, they're restricted to 10, maybe a maximum of 20. Well, here comes the bad guy with 200. So all it does is, like you said, is hurt the law-abiding citizen.
That's right. I can get a couple comments in here quick. John Scharf says, Saul Alinsky originated that, not Rahm Emanuel on not wasting a tragedy. Rahm Emanuel is Saul Alinsky.
The more recent quote.
Yeah, but Rahm Emanuel is the one that made it very popular. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it says when he was chief of staff there for Obama and then mayor in Chicago. Yeah. Well, he said it first. Remember about Ferguson? That's where it really, gained its popularity after the Saul Alinsky. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then he followed up with 10 30-round magazines. Great. Well, yeah,
exactly. I thought I'd found a great story. You'd found a great story for us, Paul. I was going to celebrate. I was going to buy a Democrat a drink.
They do make those 100-round drums for the 1022.
That's right. Just one mag per gun then, right? Yeah.
Before we get up, the next story, I want to get a comment in, but the next story we're going to talk about is also about Ron DeSantis. Charlie Chambers says Florida constitutional carry, and apparently Ron DeSantis says he'll sign a constitutional, and if a constitutional carry bill reaches his desk, he says he'll sign it. You've got a legislature in Florida that you guys have got to work on first.
Yeah, we've got a couple of people sitting up there in the Senate that are rhinos. Florida definitely has a rhino problem. We've had it for a couple of years now. We've had not constitutional carry, but other bills come up. Campus carry was one of them. Try to remember some of the other ones. It was not the constitutional carry. It was open carry. I'm sorry. Open carry was one of them. And they would not. The Senate. The Senate Majority Leader a Republican would not bring it to the floor. Listen, the reasons are difficult and simple. We wouldn't bring it to the floor because he was looking at his next job, was getting ready to be term limited out, wanted to be the next mayor. She actually wanted to be the next mayor down in Miami-Dade County as a Republican. She was worried about how they were going to react to firearms, so did not bring it to the floor. The previous guy before her, same reasons. And it's just the way that the Florida Constitution is written, is that if it is not brought to the floor by the committee chair or by the Senate Majority Leader, it's not coming to the floor. So a couple of times that has happened. We definitely have a rhino problem. We've known for some time that Ron DeSantis would sign any pro-gun bill that's brought before him. He would sign it. It doesn't matter if it's constitutional carry, open carry, campus carry. He's signing it. I mean, it's a matter of getting it there. And the South Florida Republicans, too worried about pissing off the left-wing anti-gun crowd in South Florida.
Right. Let's get to that. Let's get to that third story we're going to talk about. This is a little bit older, but this is your backyard, so I wanted to talk about this with you a little bit. This off of Vice. Ron DeSantis says he wants his own state militia. I wanted to go into this a little bit in depth with you, Mike. Now, is he talking state militia in the true form in which? I mean, is he state militia in the most common terminology is basically what a militia is termed as, to my understanding, is adult males over the age of 16 are the unregulated militia. But he wants something. He wants a state form of the National Guard. If I'm reading this right?
Yes, and when you read Vice and you read a couple of other articles out there, they say things like Ron DeSantis has to be stopped. He wants his own private army now. We can't let him do that. And evidently, we no longer have journalism whatsoever. We barely have reporters. We just have fearmongers out there, because if they had done 2 minutes worth of a Google search, they would find out that 27 states have their own state defense forces that are outside of the regular militia, being the National Guard or the reserve components in that state. Most constitutions in the states, most states' constitutions have it in there authorizing the governor to have his own state defense force. It's part of U.S. code and the U.S. Constitution that allows the governors to have their own militias and state defense forces. Paul, this really came about a little bit in World War I and a lot during World War II, when the National Guards were just decimated and put on active duty and gone. There was nobody left in the states, in the individual states, for the governor to call upon for emergency responses, for national disasters and things like that. So they really became more popular. The ranks were filled out. And for the most part, I'll tell you this as well, the state defense forces are full of former military members, former National Guard members, former reservists that either retired or went on to become specialists in the private world and civilian world, didn't have enough time to commit to the active duty National Guard or active military lifestyle, and still wanted to contribute to the home. Another thing we see in there a lot is like former Boy Scouts, because they want to continue with their outdoors, their search and rescue activities, ham radio operators, because they can help, a lot of medical staff. This is not when you hear the militia, what they are. This is just another form of the regular militia, because the governor's giving them amount of training, puts them into their uniforms. And again, Paul, the way they save on the training budget is if you were in the military to begin with, you come with a certain baseline knowledge. Mm-hmm. And that's where they draw them from. And they, say they did 5 or 6 years in the military, and then they became a doctor. Well, they welcome them back in without having to go back through additional military training. It's a great thing. I mean, the Pacific Northwest is flooded with them, and there are those in California as well, with the urban search and rescue teams, or the rural search and rescue teams. The Team Rubicon out of Washington State is a huge one up there at, where SAF headquarters is. But these militias are not the governor's personal henchmen. Listen, if the governor wanted his personal henchmen, he already owns the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the Florida Highway Patrol, the Game and Fish, and numerous other state law enforcement agencies. He doesn't need to go out and create his own defense force. The National Guard is his as well. It's just that what's been going on recently, if you've been paying attention in Oklahoma, the governor out there and the adjutant general of the National Guard said, we are not vaccinating our soldiers. We're not making it mandatory. And the Pentagon came back and said, if you don't, you're going to lose funding. And the governor said, try it. See what happens. Governor DeWine over there.
Right.
So this is Ron DeSantis's Captain Florida's answer to that. Oh, you want to threaten to take my National Guard away? That's okay. I've got my own state defense force. And they already exist in Florida. People don't understand that, too. He's not making them. They already exist. He's just going to add to their ranks.
So what's the current? There's already a state guard in Florida?
It's called the Florida Guard.
Okay.
If you see them, they wear like the old military BDU, the battle dress uniforms, the camouflage uniforms. Instead of their name tag saying U.S. Army or U.S. Air Force, it says Florida Guard.
Okay.
These guys, and again, they tend to be a hair older and maybe a few pounds more out of shape because they're not on the active roles, but they are there as search and rescue professionals, medical professionals, emergency response professionals, like we talked about, ham radio operators, trackers, urban trackers, rural trackers. They do all sorts of jobs that you find parallel in the military and in the National Guard, but maybe a little more specialized in the state. And if the Guard or reserves were to disappear, the governor has control over these. They don't belong to the federal government.
Okay. So what's the is he's looking to build the size of the Florida Guard so that should Biden say, look, you're losing your National Guard, we're defunding that, we're expanding it?
Yeah, and again, we had a decent sized Florida Guard, which is different than, and I know it's very close nomenclature wise, but the Florida Guard is different than the Florida Army National Guard or the Florida Air National Guard or the Florida National Guard. The Florida Guard is just the state defense force. But yes, what he wants to do is plus that back up. It had grown to decent numbers during like Hurricane Andrew back in '92. There had been full of volunteers, and it kind of waned away, during the war on terrorism because everybody was helping out on that side of it. But now that there's more available, and there's going to be, a drawdown in the military under Biden. You're going to start seeing, like we used to have back in the 80s and 90s. You're going to see people from the military being dismissed early, and this is one of those places they can head up.
Or seeking to get out early.
Yeah. That's more than likely what you'll see, and that's what's going on right now. I can tell you the numbers of people that are deciding to get out now is much greater than it was in the previous 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Get a couple comments here. One specifically, I want to get up John's comment off of YouTube. As a Vietnam vet, I never want to be a part of involuntary militia. But Mike, this is absolutely voluntary, right? You have to sign up for this.
Correct. It's a voluntary militia, and and we can go two different ways here. Listen, like you said, Paul, you've got the regular militia and the irregular militia. This would come under the definition of a regular militia, which is defined as in U.S. code as a reserves, a guard, or a state defense force. So that's the regular militia. The irregular militia is just like you said. Every able-bodied man, 17 or older, is part of the irregular militia. Now, I understand exactly like the comment just said. I don't want to be part of a military that's got draftees in it as well. I don't want to be a part of a defense force that has draftees in it. That made for a very, very difficult time in the military. There's a time for that. Don't get me wrong. You got all-out World War, and you got people sitting on the fence. Well, a draft will take care of that. That's we needed that during World War II. Vietnam, as our heroic Vietnam veteran right there. Welcome home, sir. By the way, knows that it made life very difficult in the military when you had people that didn't want to be there in the first place. The threat of discipline to throw them out of the Army was no threat whatsoever. And They were doing whatever they wanted to do.
Right. Interesting comment from George Geller. He says, the well-regulated phrase in the Second Amendment means every member needs his own personal AR-15. We've got multiple here in the Lathrop arsenal. There's multiple ARs. Just leaving that out there. But yeah, you know what? I think everybody should have a weapon they can become familiar with and are able to take down and yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
that was the purpose for the Second Amendment. Well, half of the purpose for the Second Amendment. We know that the Second Amendment, looking back on the Federalist Papers and now listening to recent Supreme Court rulings, that it's the Second Amendment is two parts. The first part being the well-regulated militia meant that individuals had their own firearms, and well-regulated mean they knew how to use them, and they knew how to drill with them, they knew how to clean them, they knew how to fire them. A well-regulated militia shall not be infringed. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's
Right.
what the Second Amendment really is. It's those two statements separate. And that was, we know we have Antonin Scalia to thank for that now, for that clarification.
Speaking as Paul Lathrop, and I'm going to separate myself from the SAF because what I'm going to say might be a little bit controversial here. My the one thing I think is unfortunate when we start talking militia is there are quite literally hundreds of unorganized militias in the country. And usually they are led by what I'm going to call whack jobs. They're just a few screws loose.
Yeah.
And they get together and they play war games. And they may know how to assemble and disassemble. That's doubtful. What they really like to do is get together and play war games. I wish there were more militias that were put together by real former military or maybe even current military, and were willing to train civilians and were willing to take in civilians.
Yeah, and a lot of them will. And Paul, I mean, listen, this would apply to like you as well. If you're a militia, if you had a state defense force, well, guess what they're going to need to move from one end of the state to the other? Is somebody that's very well rehearsed in logistics and transportation in the trucking industry, because we're not just all hopping in our pickups and driving down there. All right, that's how you have an organized militia. And you're right, militia in the past 30, 40 years has gotten a bad name because people associate it with these illegal anti-government groups. All right, the David Koreshes of the world, right? That's where they see it. They see it as the anti-government. Now, listen, all the militias that are in the state forces obviously are loyal to the state, loyal to the governor. The National Guards are loyal to the states and then to the federal government, and they are. I cannot support an illegal militia, but I will point out that you and I would not be in the United States of America if it wasn't for illegal militias, according to the British Army.
You're absolutely right there. If it weren't for, and I've seen this meme on Facebook, but I absolutely agree. If it weren't for 17-year-olds with assault guns, because that's what a musket was back in the 1700s. If it weren't for 17-year-olds with assault guns, we'd still be British.
Yeah. Now, the difference being, and I want to make sure we're clear on this, those illegal militias, because we created a new country because the laws were oppressive and they were, tyranny and everything that was going on there. I think you and I would probably agree that I'm okay with the way the Constitution's written. It's the people that are interpreting it that I have the issue with. All right. And if we can't do that properly through through polls and ballots and making elections happen, and if that were to come to an end, well, I think, Paul, if somebody stood up and said and declared this being a socialist country and we're taking away your rights, that's what happened the first time. I'd like to see the restoration of the Constitution in full, rather than the bastard interpretation of tyrants over it.
Butch says the problem is the government thinks a militia is bad, whether it is bad or good, whether it is good or bad. Yes.
Yeah. Well, now listen. I don't think the government thinks it. I mean, they're going to use that word. They're going to try and spin it the way they want to, just like the media does, to make everybody on the right look bad. All I have to do is look in U.S. code and tell you that militia is authorized and good. Now, if you tell me you've got an anti-government overthrowing, want to take over the power of so-and-so because of, the neighbor's dog told them to do it, now, that guy's a whack job, just like you started off saying, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I'm not trying to point out anybody specifically. I've just run into more than one person that has been the leader of a militia where I think they really should go back and start taking their meds. I'll just leave it at that.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's what it gets associated with, right? Exactly that type of behavior. But now the State Defense Force with Ron DeSantis, Governor DeSantis, is a good thing again. Already exists. Did you know? We looked this up too, Paul. There's actually 5 states that have a naval militia as well, their own state naval defense force. Yeah,
was not aware of that.
The oddest one. Now, a couple of them are kind of easy to get. New York's one of them. Let's see, California's one. Mm-hmm. But the most odd one we found was Ohio. They have a naval militia in Ohio.
I was looking into this a while back, and believe it or not, Wyoming was looking into getting an aircraft carrier. And I'm not kidding in the least. This was several years ago. This was during the Obama administration, and things were starting to go a little bit south. And in case things got really south, there was a legislator that was proposing that Wyoming look into buying its own aircraft carrier in case states started to secede from the Union. Wyoming wouldn't have to stand all on its own. They'd have an aircraft carrier to defend Wyoming's interests. Where they're going to station that thing, I don't know. But
that's a. Now I got to look that up. I got to know the rest of that story. That sounds pretty interesting read.
Yeah, exactly. Let me get this last one up. We're just about to the bottom of the hour, but let me get this comment up. John says, I am the leader and follower of one. The rest can stay off my lawn. I like that.
There you go. That's it. He's got the most loyal militia out there.
Absolutely. You're not going to have any problems with dissensions in the ranks there, man.
No.
So what's been going on in the rundown, man? I lost your audio. I had to kill the mic. I'm sorry, Mike. Your audio, I'm getting just static straight from you. And there, now your level dropped. Let's try. Nope. I think he's having a mic problem. I'm getting just straight static coming from your mic. Yeah. No, we're still got lots of. I'm getting like almost full volume static. David, let me put this up real quick while we're waiting for Mike to get through his audio issues. Navy and militia, not that weird. Great Lakes are pretty large. If they were in Europe, they would be called seas. I have no doubt about that. If the Great Lakes were over by Europe, they'd be called, each of the individual Great Lakes would be called seas. And now, Mike, you're pegging me with static. I think what we're going to do, we're going to shut this one down. Mike, I'm sorry for the audio issues. Thank you for joining us today, man. And everybody, come join us tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time for the Friday Daily Bullet. And don't forget to join us Wednesday at noon Central Time. And we'll be coming at you with a weekly bullet. Thanks again for watching, everybody.